Okay, once we got the leaf close enough to the rear diff, we just went ahead and dropped the U-bolts in place, put the plate down here in place, and then we just take our bolts, tighten them up, which squeezes the diff and the leads together. Now you gotta work it slow because you still got that centering pin to deal with, so you gotta be able, best way to do it is most time looking at it from this direction, looking in, so you can see where that bolt is in relation to that hole that's down inside that plate right there, because that locates and centers your rear differential to the rest of the body. So I'm going to get on the other side, eyeball it while we're tightening it up to get that bolt head to go up inside that hole. Okay, just a little heads up for everyone. If you do this, when you do this modification, this junkyard lift, if you do the rear end first, then the front end, instead of doing like we're doing driver's side, the passenger side, it's actually a lot better if you just jack the tail end of the Jeep up, suspend the back end of it, do the back, then drop it down, do the front. You won't have to deal with this. We'll have to pull the axle in line with the center bolt here. So we got straps running across from leaf to leaf to pull the differential back this way to line that bolt up. And we got this strap tied to the back bumper to the diff to pull the rear end that way to get to line up with the centering bolt. So, I mean, it's not a hard fix, just a little extra steps to make it happen. But if you do the rear end first and the front end next, or vice versa, maybe you won't have to go through all this trouble. But again, if you got these straps, you can pull the differential where you need to do to line that pin back up. But I just want to point that out. Got this tied from leaf to leaf, which pulls the differential back this way as you tighten it to line that bolt up. Bumper to the center of the differential, pulls it that way to get it to line up. So you got to look in between the plate here and the diff to see where that centering bolt is lined up at. We've got it lined up perfectly now. All we got to do is tighten up these U-bolts and we'll have that put back in. And I know someone's going to be hyping up saying I need new shock absorbers. Yes, you are correct. But that is going to be another video because I actually got something in store for you guys, a little special for that. So just hang tight on the shock video. I got something for you guys on that one. Alright, we got the rear end done. We cranked these babies down. I mean, we like really threw the mojo at them. You can get a whole bunch of Wheaties and go He-Man on them. Got them tightened down real good. Yes, I know people's going to say, hey, you're going to drag those on rocks or whatever. I know that, but I don't plan on going wheeling no time soon because I want to leave those for right now. Because just in case I want to switch my leads around, you know, a little different configuration, I want to have those available until I'm totally happy with everything the way it's set up. So once I am, I'll cut those off, take care of it from there. So we're going to put the back tire back on, see what she looks like. Okay, it's time to do the front. What I went ahead and done, taking for the end link here, taking it off here, then we're going to pull this off and pull it off that bottom plate. So when we remove these U-bolts, that whole plate will just drop. So get this end link off first, save yourself a lot of headache. Because it's kind of hard to deal with. If you take the plate out first, it's really hard to deal with. So while it's still attached, go ahead and get that end link off. Then we're going to pull these U-bolts. Alright, we got that bottom plate off, pull your U-bolts out, and then we're going to jack this diff up and hang it by the frame up here just like we did for the rear, so we can start breaking the leaf pack down. Okay, differential separated from the leaves as you can see here, using a tie-down strap going under the axle tube, hooked here. Then you see the hook coming through right there, up that hook back there, to hold the diff up out of the way while we break down the pack here to get ready to swap out the leaves. Okay, much like the rears, same procedure. We've got that center location bolt. We got to loosen up, take a clamp, lock it onto the leaves, and start loosening that bolt right there, which is the same as the rear. It's a 13mm to come off. Okay, after getting all that out, what we got to do next is the hole that goes through the main leaf of the Jeep leaf. We got to make it big enough for that, just like we did the rear. But we need to be able to run the bolt through the Jeep pack, the Jeep leaf right here first, because we got to measure and cut the main leaf off the S10. So I got to Dremel this right here out, get this bolt down through there, then we'll size up and cut the S10 leaf. And just like doing the rear pack, you gotta look at the diameter of these bolts right here. You got to cut this down as the same diameter as that one. Otherwise, the mounting pad, the centering pad, will not go over this head of the bolt here. So you got to cut this one down to match that one, just like the rear. In order to get the bolt to go in, we had to spread the leaf, put the jack underneath that differential here, pick the diff up to the point it wouldn't go no further, take the pry bar, push the spring down, drop the bolt in, because we're going to use this bolt to align the GM spring to know where to cut it. What? Okay, this is the Chevrolet main leaf right here. Use the centering bolt here, the location bolt, to locate the spring where you need it, vice grips to hold that in place. You see you got a lot of overhang here, and you got some overhang back here. So what we got to do at this point, we're going to figure out where we're going to cut the leaf. Okay, so it's pretty well in shape as to where it's going to need to be. So actually you just need to cut it probably right along there. Come back about 1.5 inches or so from, I don't know, probably about 2 inches. If you just come down from the main leaf here, from the bolt, come back about 2 inches here. Let's see. Yeah, that would do it. About 2 inches there. And we'll do about, let's see what we can follow out back here. And let's see, it's about 2 inches, so yeah. So it'll be about right along here, about 2 inches back from that. We're going to mark it and cut these eyes off this main leaf, about right there. Took a straight edge in the marker, mark a straight line on both sides, on both ends, and that's going to be our cut line. So we're about to take that grinder head and chop those off. Alright, there's a piece that got cut off, and you can see all the crap hanging off the end here. You do want to get your little grinder radius off that end real well, because one thing that you're giving up, if you wish to buy a set of leaves, each end of it here is going to have those little rubber pads, little Teflon pads to rub against the leaf above it. This really isn't an option. If my plasma cutter was working, I'd blow me a hole through that sucker right there and put them little Teflon pads in. But this spring steel so rough, it chews up bits so fast. Not absolutely necessary, but it definitely does help if you have the pads. So we're going to take the grinder, radius that off real good generous radius, this way and that edge, both ends, and then we'll come back with the flap wheel and smooth and dress it up real well. Okay, you can see from the side shot there, I got a good generous radii going on that. Again, I'd rather have the little Teflon pad there, and may clean this back a little bit more with the little flap wheel. And I was thinking, I've got some 2-part epoxy. If I get one of those rubber, Teflon pads, cut the piece that goes through this, maybe some 2-part epoxy and glue it on. But I may try to separate the leaf and do that later. But I may go ahead and grind it back so I don't have to fool with that. May try it. Haven't ever tried that before, so it's worth a shot. I'd rather have them there, but this is not absolutely 100% necessary. So now we strike the leaves underneath the Jeep. Yeah, just about. Okay, we got the leaf stacked. We're putting the leaf stuff in for the front. Got the centering bolt located, and we're going to start tightening that up. I mean, the rest, just like the back end, you're going to tighten this up, compress them together. Drop your U-bolts down over the axle here, get everything lined back up. I was originally gonna add 2 more leaves into this right here, but I'm afraid the front end's gonna get so stiff it's gonna ride like a dump truck. If I don't get the lift I'm looking for to level out with the back end, one of my shackles here are kind of bent anyway. I'm just gonna get me a set of boomerang shackles and change them out. So if I do that, that's going to be one of those cases where I can make another video for you guys how to change out your front shackles. So if I don't get the lift I'm looking for the front to level the Jeep out, I'm going to go for a little bit longer shackles on it. So anyway, the rest of the install is just like the back end. We got the centering bolt put in, tighten this up, drop your U-bolts over, tighten your plate up, line the front end up. If we run into anything special, we'll kick the camera back in to show you what's up. So we're about to lose light out here, so we need to slam this baby back together. Okay, when you're putting your front U-bolts in, for our front set for the YJs, the Dana 30 fronts, you got two different size U-bolts. It's a wide one and a narrow one. Your wide one is going to go here over top of the pumpkin here. Your narrow width one will go on this side and down. So just in case you get them and you accidentally stick one on one side because you've never experienced, you know, putting these differentials in, I just wanted to point that out, that you got a wide U-bolt and a narrow U-bolt. Narrow one goes over the tube, wide one goes over the chunk. So I need to point that out to you before you started this project and it's like, oh no, this ain't gonna work. So there you go. So we had a time getting a center pin lined back up with the differential. We had to move the axle that way. So we took the strap, hooked the leaf, wrapped around the front, put the leaf there, stitched that baby down, and popped it right in place. Now getting the sway bar end link hooked back in, I'm going to tie it onto here, pull it down to put it in place. Well, earlier in the video I mentioned about using two S10 leaves in the back. Well, I just want to tell you guys something, and don't do it. It rides so rough, too much lift. Now my drive shaft vibrates like crazy. It's a no-go, it really is. I mean, I know I can do a transfer case drop, but my shocks are bobbing out because they're overextended. Yes, I know I can get longer shocks, but the rear suspension is so stiff that going on the highway 60 miles an hour or so, that the rear differential wants to bounce instead of just absorbing the bump and stuff. It actually wants to bounce. Railroad tracks, you need a proctologist dig the seat out of your crack. So no, I'm gonna pull the S10 leaf back out the bottom one. So let's check out the pack and I'll show you what I'm doing. Okay, we have the main Jeep leaf here. This is an S10 leaf. This is a Jeep leaf. This is an S10 leaf. I'm pulling this one back out. I'm going to put the short one back in. So whenever you guys decide if you want to do this lift, what you want to do is use this. This is right here is the S10 leaf, the second leaf in the stack. The main leaf, as you seen earlier in the video, gets cut and put up front. This is the second leaf in the S10 pack. That's the only leaf you need to use in the back. And keep it Jeep and Jeep. So I'm going to pull this one back out. This is the S10 leaf, and put this one back in. That should soften my ride back up to a manageable state, because it is ridiculous how rough it is. Once you get those leaves back stacked, now this is the Jeep leaf here. There's the S10 leaf. I took that S10 leaf back out like I mentioned a moment ago I was going to do. This is the last. The Jeep stack factory was this Jeep, 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 Jeep. Okay. All thing I did is took this leaf out, put that to S10 leaf. Now put the Jeep leaf back in here. Hold the bolt up here. If you take your wrench and just stick it up there and just simply rotate it like that, tighten them right up and pulls them right in place. Now I gotta put the camera up because I'm getting rained on all of a sudden. Yesterday you guys seen that I pulled the extra S10 leaf out. I was running two of them in the back, which was way too much. I had to try it. I mean, a little voice in the back of my head kept telling me that it was going to be too much. And I was right. Yeah, that little voice was right. For once I ought to listen to it. But no, it's just me. So by pulling that S10 leaf out, the Jeep actually absorbs bumps now. It doesn't try to bounce me out like one of those mechanical bulls or anything. Some of my drive shaft vibration, much less. I still have some, so I'm going to do a transfer case drop, do an inch space kit, drop it down a little bit to decrease the drive line angle. That should fix that, because not a whole lot left, but there's still some there. That one extra S10 leaf I put in there gave me 1.25 inches to lift. Now that I've taken the lift out of it, I mean, it dropped about 1.25 inches. And I'm running at probably 7.75 inches between tire to here. I think I measured 7.75 inches. So where it originally was, adding the Jeep main leaf, S10 leaf, Jeep, and Jeep. By adding that one S10 leaf in there, it gave me probably a good 1.75 inches, almost 2 inches of lift. My bump stops used to be, if I laid my fingers like this, I could barely get my fingers under the bump stops. That's how little room I had left because my factory leads were so de-arched. So now I got 4 right there. So yeah, I've got a good 1.75 inches, maybe 2 inches of lift out of that. It rides so much better. Before, if I hit a bump too hard, the suspension would bottom out on the bump stops, and I got all the impact. It's kind of like you need a proctologist to drive this thing. It'd jam the seat up your crack. Let's check the front. Okay, up front I'm running Jeep main leaf, S10 main leaf, but I cut the eyes off of it as you've seen earlier in the video. Jeep leaf and Jeep leaf. Now, how much difference did it do me up front? I got a solid 2 inches of lift up front. Trying to position the camera where I can show you the bump stops. Okay, here's the bump stops here. If you can get the camera. I'm sorry, peeps. I'm trying to get this camera angle right for you. Got my head stuck in between the tire and the fender. Here we go. Okay, right here. Before I had probably just a 2, maybe 3 left into it, but it was very common that every time I hit a huge speed bump or roller track, something like that, they would bottom out the front suspension on the bump stops, and it was rough, really rough. Now you can see I got, 4 fingers and plenty of space, so I got a solid 2 inches of lift just by putting that one leaf in right here, the 1S10 leaf. So 1S10 leaf, solid 2 inches of lift up front. Did it come with a price? Well, maybe a little bit. Like I said, I've got some vibration still going on in the drive shaft. I'm going to do the T-case drop mod. My front drive shaft, where it increased the driveline angle to the transfer case, my exhaust runs down right there. It rubs my exhaust just a little bit. Not bad, but it's just enough it does rub. But I've got 2.5 inch exhaust under this. Jeeps don't come with that, but I put that under, so it's a little bit, not a whole lot of room to work with. So, not a big deal. I took the grinder. It was just rubbing a weld, so I took a grinder and cut some of that weld back. I'm good. I know that video was a little bit long in the making. I hinted at you guys a few times about having the leaves, having the parts, and I just never really got around to it. The fact of the matter is, I drive my Jeep more than anything. I mean, this over here, I drive it occasionally, but I prefer driving my Jeep over anything, and I don't like my Jeep being down. So what I had to do is wait for a weekend that I had really nothing pressing or I had to be anywhere to where I could tear my Jeep apart and get it back together. Once I did that, I drove it for another week to see how the leaves acted when I put the 2 S10 leaves in. I wanted to see how it was so I could give you guys accurate information, not just put it in the comments below later on or something. I want to give you guys up front what's going on. So the S10 leaves, just do one front rear. You want the first of the S10 pack. You want the first main leaf to go up front. The next leaf down goes in the rear. That's all you need. Anything more than that, go buy leaves. Go buy a custom built leaf pack from, I don't know, Rough Country or Old Man Emu. There's a few different companies that sells them. So you really want, if you get anything more than this, do it right. So everyone, I hope you learned something from the video. I sure did. That sometimes more is not the right thing to do. So if you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up, comment down below, subscribe if you haven't, and everyone, I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Peace. Oh, one more thing. Check out www.fixjeeps.com. Down in the description, I'll put the part numbers to my parts I use to do the lift with. Because all in all, I think I've got like $150 in the whole thing. That's springs, shackles, springs, U-bolts, and new centering pins. So I got just shy of $150 in it. So if you go jump over to my website, www.fixjeeps.com, you'll have the part numbers there. And also, if you check out, I've got a partner with Amazon. You guys can buy parts through my website, and just an easy way for you guys to get to things. Another thing you ladies may find interesting, but you fellas can too, if you want to do an oil change on your vehicle, if you go into my website now, partner with coupons.com. Coupons.com is mostly predominantly a coupon site for grocery stuff. But if you go through the little drop down menu, click on automotive, oftentimes with Valvoline and Pennzoil and some of your quick change places, they'll have a discount coupon to where you can save money on your oil changes or purchasing oil to do the oil change yourself. So go by, check it out. I got that on if you face my website over on the right hand side. The links like the third, fourth link down. It says printable coupons or something like that. Just go check that out. So everyone, thumbs up, comment down below. Peace. Later, y'all.